The deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say I'm reawakening minds. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say I'm reawakening minds.
Happy Holy Day, Moors. Welcome to House of Reawakening Minds. House of Reawakening Minds exists to provide for the exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are a holistic center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and Moorish science, an awakening experience for all ages. Tonight, I'm pleased to present to you our National Grand Sheik Taj Tarik Bey as he presents true facts about the United States Corporation. But before he begins, please be sure to like, share, and if you have not already done so, subscribe to our channel. Now, let's receive our National Grand Sheik Taj Tarik.
Islam, Shalom, Assalamu alaikum, Vadi Makum. We want to talk tonight about many of the facts about the United States Corporation. And these are not issues or things that we have not talked about over the decades. However, because of the operations that are taking place at Midgard, particularly recently, we're well aware that many of the people, particularly the Asiatic African tribes of North America, as well as around the world, but I'm speaking particularly of the North Gate, Northwest Africa, North America, known as the North Gate cosmologically and culturally, sometimes referred to as falsely as Negroes, blacks, colored, and Indian tribes, etc., all of who are actually ancient Canaanite, Moabite, Hittite tribes, etc., that comprise the Aboriginal peoples of the land. Ab means people, and original means first. So Aboriginal means first people. The common term that is used by sociologists, particularly at North America, is indigenous people. But Aboriginal means first people or people first. Keep that in mind. So we want to present some facts to many of the people who are becoming aware of, and I want to, as an interim and preface, I want to remind many of you, as we have told you for the last, we've emphasized it for years, but we've emphasized it for the last 10 years, more or less, here from the House of Reawakening Minds, to take your vouchers out of the banks. Now the vouchers are the private corporate or the private commercial papers of the Jesuit order known as the Federal Reserve Board of Directors, who are really Roman Curia members and not legitimate or what you would call constitutional officers. They're really members of the Roman Curia, and the vouchers that you have been trained in and presented to you as money are not money, never have been money. However, we are aware that many of the people, even having some knowledge of it, still habitually, because of training, keep casting the spells among themselves and among their children, and therefore the energy that they're projecting into the ethers constitutes manifest. And because the priesthood has not really taught the people the truth about religion, they have the same way that they have used fiat to control the aboriginals. They've also used what you call dogmata and schismata as substitutes for religion, and thus the people, not knowing the power of the mind and the power of the word, have been casting spells on themselves and continuing the powers of Rome on the land at the North Gate. However, we're well aware that the P2 Masons, that is the Pontiffs Masons, and that is the Order of Malta, etc., Knights of Columbus, Kyklaus, Ku Klux Klan, Daughters of the American Revolution, Freemasons, distinguished from Masonry itself, which is the cosmological culture of the ancient Gnostics, i.e., the true Saba people, i.e., the Asiatic African tribes, which has been contaminated and misrepresented. However, we know that it's necessary to redundantly, in some ways, do some dissolutionary statements or present information redundantly to many of the people who do not have a scholarly background on the jurisdictional civil operations of occupational government under colonial powers of the Roman Curia operating at North America under unum sanctum operations. And we're aware of that. So even though we have been informing the people over the years, we know that the priesthood have been accelerating their weaponry, both with psychic attacks as well as economic warfare against the people, particularly as of late. And many of you, I would suggest that you start checking your so-called, which are not really yours, bank accounts that have names on them that are similar in sound, or what you call homonym, to your attribute. However, those are tied to the Sister QV Trust operations. And the Federal Reserve notes that you have been trained as fiat. They come under the category of fiat. They're actually vouchers to the Sister QV Trust that are tied to the World Global Trust controlled by the Bishopric of Rome, Roman Curia members of the Circle Church and Chancery, etc., headed by the Pope of Rome. And so many of you are going, if you start doing some research into those accounts that have been associated with you, many of you are going to find that many of your accounts have been deleted, and many of your funds that you thought you have been reduced. And many of you haven't been paying attention. So after we have this talk tonight, I suggest that any of you that have any bank accounts across the nation, across the world, doesn't matter whether it is Bank of America, Citibank, Chase, etc., many of you are going to find a lot of your so-called funds disappeared. And that's as we're speaking now. That's aside from this conversation that we're having right now. However, because the energy is needed from the people themselves in order to stimulate our connection with Midgard, i.e. the land, this particular firmament that we call Earth, etc., it is necessary in order for us to reconnect with the land and reconnect with our ancient mothers and fathers in order to use a countermeasure against the dark priesthood of Rome, who are operatively accelerating their attacks against humanity. And so we must use the land, the air, the water, and the elements, and call them to our defense in the name of our ancient mothers and fathers. And so in order to defend yourselves and your families, they have their weaponry, and those of Asiatic Africans of the ancient Coptic breed of Saba, we have our weapons. And so while they play their games with us, we have been appealing to their moral obligations to both Constitution principles and treaties, and to the fundamental moral justice of humanity, all of which they have both ignored and trampled on. Therefore, they have to face the elements because they have no cognizance of our connection. They do really have cognizance of our connection. However, many of our people don't know their cognizance to the connection to the elements. And so, in order to counter much of the evils and the passion for sadistic operations of the popes of Rome and their Roman Curia, the elements in the names of our ancient mothers and fathers are already active and are called to accelerate the defense of the true heirs of the land, we the people of the land. Now we stand and we shall preface this timely presentment of facts to you all about the foreign for profit and human trafficking occupational United States, etc., operating, doing judicial and jurisdictional civil operations on the land. And this corporate entity, which is the property of the hybrid Pope of Rome and of his bishopric curia order mercenaries exercising civil jurisdiction at northwestern Mexico, Northwest Africa, North America, the North Gate. And we, the true heirs and rightful natural peoples of the land, stand firm and cognate of our divine and natural rights of reversion of loss of our lost estate, and make no consent whatsoever to the occupying peregrinos, who you have been told are pilgrims. They're really the Paleolithic hybrid Europeans that took over Iberia, that you know now as Europe, and who have been occupying our land here at the Maghreb. Now, our right of reversion of estate, and we make no consent whatsoever to the occupying peregrinos, nor to their Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed order of Unum Sanctum, which is the acronym US, and many of you know, but we know that many of those people who have been teaching you in the name of the different dogma orders, whether they're calling it Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, that all of them know that the operations on the planet are really under the order of Unum Sanctum, known as the US. Their corporate entity that they have been operating politically around the world in, or with, or through, with its multiple tentacles, are known as the United States Corporation Company. Now, many of you know about it, and we have talked to you about it, but we're going to talk certain facts, and we want you, in order to stimulate your mind to recognize much of what has been happening to you, we know has been disguised as racism, which is a total diversion. So we're going to repeat some of the things that we've told you over the decades, but we'll put them in context of conversation. So we suggest that many of you go back over this presentment tonight and take bullet points. So we'll not have so much a linear conversation with you, but I'm going to give you some bullet points. And in the future, we plan to do a more specific, what we can't do it on channels like this, more in a documentary form, and we will plan that, Dr. G, well documented and well structured in a documentary form, and give you many of the receipts that we have presented to you over the years so it can be preserved. Now, many of you, some of you know, but some of you don't know. And I sensed it before, but when I was traveling, I sensed with certain confusions that were taking place that because they were trying to block me from making certain things happen. And so some of my property was conveniently misdirected in my travels recently, and they thought that they could stop me. It's another reason why I'm coming at them again, because I recognized it after going into my mind later that it was a psychic attack. And it's on me for not being on my toes, because I should have sensed it because I saw other things taking place. That's another story. And so a lot of other people lost their properties for them coming after me. However, they can't take this away. Now we're going to go through certain bullet points, and I want you to write these things down, and this will remind you of many things that have taken place, many things that are taking place now as we speak, so that you can become vibrationally in harmony with the uniting of Asia, which is taking place at Midgard as we speak, and it's accelerating. And because the P2s and the bishopric are well aware, because they've always been in front of the people, so they've already put traps in place to injure the people severely. So many of you, after you listen to us tonight, and you start doing a little bit of research into all your records, I know that many of you will probably call Dr. G. Please don't pressure her, because they've been calling her from around the world. But I'm letting you know already that I already know that some of you are going to be calling back when you discover that you've lost a lot of finance as I'm speaking in your so-called accounts that never belonged to you. Now, keep in mind, as we've told you before, anything that you put in the bishopric orders bank system, and the banks are really the benches of the Pope, so keep that in mind. Anything that you gave them in the name of any account, a saving account, checking account, deposits, etc., become assets of the bank, and you are listed legally, not lawfully, legally as an unsecured creditor. I repeat, write this down. An unsecured creditor, which makes whatever you put in those banks theirs first, yours second. And as they have been losing, as we've been telling you for the last 7 years, that you were going to have a feedback loop, which is taking place right now. And we've reminded you that inflation is a code word for corrupt government to cover up the fact that they're robbing the people in the name of price rise. And because they know that most people don't know what these words mean because they're not taught civics, that they just look at the so-called inflation as been told by the politicians that have to deal with what you call supply and demand, etc., when the reality of it is it's a tool that is used by corrupt government to keep people in check. And they're attacking you right now as we speak because they know that the masses around the world are waking up, but they know that the people of the land of the North Gate are for whatever the reasons, that's a conversation with itself, are slow to come to the cognizance of their lost estate. And because there's so many among us who are compromised and who have been put in place to constantly counter anything that brings these people to a level of Christ consciousness, and that doesn't mean what you've been thinking it means. It also means the light that's in you, etc. And it doesn't come from the Constantinians, it comes from your forefathers and your foremothers. And so when you're looking at the different brandings of the secularism of what you've been told is religion, i.e., Christianity, Islam, etc., Judaism, all of it is Wudan. Now, you write that down and you do research. We can talk about that later. But you must know the origin. All of it comes from your ancient Saba or Sabian, Moabite, Canaanite peoples of the land, founders of religion and founders of civilization on the planet, Midgard, etc. That's a fact. However, with the advent of the hybrid Europeans, you commonly refer to them as Europeans, but they are Pellegrinos, particularly the ones who have occupied North America under what you know as the Unum Sanctum Wars or Christian Crusades, which is a cover for the Constantine order conquering the true Sabian people that is covered up with another three-letter word that you're familiar with. And you know that we come back on this site to tell you certain things because we had to make some changes in order to try to preserve communication with you as the priesthood have been knowingly countering. So we expect you to take notes and then do some research on your own. And some of these things we'll present to you on the other channel in order to be more blunt with you. However,
May I just interject? Because there were some questions as to why we were on YouTube.
yes, can you explain some of these
Yes,
things?
why we're on YouTube as opposed to our StreamYard platform today. And the reason why we came back on YouTube for this particular session is to, first of all, to kind of grab some of you back in who think that we're no longer, you can't find us. We had about 400 and some odd viewers, direct live viewers to our first unfiltered. We want to do more of our sessions as unfiltered. But the question is making sure that they have the link, and it won't always, we're not going to always require you to actually put in your email address and so forth. But that was something that we are trying to, catalog who it is we're speaking to. But in the meantime, we have a website in progress. I just want you to know that a website is being developed for us. And as soon as that website is developed, you will be able to go on that website and always get the link to whether we're doing a regular YouTube or whether we're doing our unfiltered. We'll be doing more unfiltered once you have an access to register without trying to email me or text me as to how to get on. So soon, I would say within the matter of a couple of weeks, Grand Sheik, they should be able to go on the website and just click on the link for upcoming unfiltered broadcasts. So we came back on regular so that we can let you all who did not get in on the live the last time know that that's what we'll be doing. So hopefully that will answer some of your questions as to why we're back on regular YouTube.
Yes, and because we are aware that because the P2s have accelerated their courier operations against the natural people, that many of the people are being, as we speak, caught off guard. And so, as was spoken to you, on many occasions by others who have been coming here to help the people, that you need each other now, and you'll need each other even more so after a while. This is the after while. And so you're going to have to start helping each other and stay focused because you're under accelerated attack. Not that the attack never stopped, is that people are becoming more cognizant that they're under attack. They were asleep for the most part and just thought they had other problems. But because the bishopric order of Constantinians, who have been disguising themselves for last few centuries as Christians, etc., or really Constantinians, have been accelerating their attack against the Aboriginal people of the land. And so the people in many areas relative to their economics and the general politics are caught off guard and are a little confused. And so we're making some of these points of facts to you so that the vibration of your thought processes can dispel many of the dark spells are continuously being attached to the people and projected on the people and projected on the people, etc. And by you being more aware of what's happening to you, you would be more spiritually capable of immediately thinking on your feet to counter them, etc., with reverse reflection, etc. Many of you who are metaphysicians know what I'm talking about. Many of you who know the truth about religion know how to counter spell casting, and many of you don't. However, if we can help raise the vibrational thought process of the people, nature herself will come to your aid because of the cycle of the time that we're in and the cycle placement that we're in to counter the dark priesthood. And because things are occurring so fast amongst the Asiatic African nations in relationship to repelling many of the bottomry instruments that the hybrids have been using to fund their human trafficking corporation, that they are openly attacking the people and are less able to constantly construct different hidden or veiled programs to attack the people. And so it's becoming more and more obvious to the people that these people who they thought, and I repeat, thought was their government, thought was their constitutional government, have been, as we've been telling you for decades, really your enemies. However, knowing that you are limited in your capacity to counter them, therefore your fight is more spiritual than it is physical. It will reflect in the physical world, but you can call on your connection to Midgard, to the earth, being the people of the earth, and vibrate in such a way that the land, the air, and the water will help in the battle of the restoration of your lost estate. This is aside from the fact that the nations of the earth are trading or altering their trade patterns with the hybrids who are actually impersonators. This is what you got to keep in mind. The operations that you have thought were government is really the private corporation of the bishopric order of the Roman Curia. So take these points. We've given this information out years ago, and we're going to repeat some of these things. So take notes, come back and rewrite, or take notes and rewrite some of these things that we're presenting to you so that your concepts will be clear. The energy, the mental energy that it will stimulate in your brain, in your gut, i.e., in your intuit, will manifest the more people that are cognate, that will stimulate the energies of your ancient mothers and fathers coming to your aid. Now, all natural peoples, and with those who are part of the corporate structure, calling themselves citizens, who are also suffering from the operations of the bishopric curia order, should be aware of and know that the following are laws or color of laws applicable at North America v. the United States Corporation Company. Now, the following information and facts shall be read and analyzed with the knowledge and the conditions that the reader is cognate and conscious of the lawful distinctions made between, quote unquote, constitutionally sanctioned laws, i.e., constitutionally sanctioned departments, constitutionally sanctioned offices, or constitutionally sanctioned entities, or constitutionally sanctioned activities known as de jure, and distinguished from those pseudo laws and pseudo policies which have been or are constructed under a color of authority, a color of office, and a color of law, being unlawful, commonly known in jurisprudence as being de facto, unconstitutional in character, thus immoral, unethical, and criminal acts against humanity. And so law and concept corrections are always in order. And so we're going to present to you redundant facts that are researchable and that should help you in your vibrational thought patterns in all of your social, political, and economic affairs, particularly since I know many of you are experiencing on multiple levels that you're under particularly social, and economic attack as we speak. This will give some of you who have to make intelligent and lawful response a foundation of thought pattern, because many of the people are mentally scattered for lack of knowledge. Hoping that much of this will bring some cohesiveness to your thought patterns. And while you're doing that, it will project energy into the ethers that will activate the land, the air, and the water in your favor to aid you in this battle to counter the dark priesthood of the bishopric order of the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed order, known under the corporate arms as the United States Corporation, that has been perpetrated against the people as being a constitutional government, which it was not, is not, never was, and will not be. Point 1. The Internal Revenue Service, known to you as the IRS, is not a constitutionally sanctioned United States Republic government agency. The IRS is an agency of the International Monetary Fund. And of course, for those of you who need some reference for research, look at this law case, just Diversified Metal Products versus IRS et al. I will not go into the details of the page numbers, which would be more direct, and because of time factors, we want to get more information in. But for those of you who know anything about jurisprudence and case law, this will give you a foundation to recognize that you actually have not and never had any obligation to be paying these Curia members under the IRS, that they have actually been a private human trafficking criminal operations controlled by people who you've been thinking was your government, known as Curia members, commonly referred to as congressmen and senators, etc., who are really praetor operations under unum sanctum, known as the U.S. So if you want to look at law case to give you a little bit more information, look at that Diversified Metal Products versus IRS. And that's at CV 93-405E EJE US DC DI. Public Law 94 564, Senate Report 94 1148, page 5967, Reorganization Plan number 26, Public Law 102391. Try to keep up with us, but remember to go back and review this, because these people are going to be attacking you to steal the little bit of energy of the vouchers that you have left, because they're going to be destroying your families. You already know that. We don't have to get into the details. Pay attention. 2, the International Monetary Fund, known as the IRS, is an agency of the United Nations, known as the UN. And you'll find that in the 6th edition of Black's Law Dictionary, Ancient and Modern Jurisprudence, page 816. 3, the United States has not had a treasury since 1921 AD. 41 Statute, Chapter 214, page 651. 4, the United States Treasury is now the IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund. Presidential Documents, Volume 24, Number 4, page 11322, United States Code 285-2887. 5, the United States does not have any employees, because there is no longer a legitimate United States. That's referred to the Republic, which was overthrown in 1861 with the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. There shall be no more reorganizations, and after over 200 years of bankruptcy, it is finally over. That's Executive Order 12803. 6. The FCC, the CIA, the FBI, and NASA, and all the other alphabet gangs were never a lawful part of the United States Republic constitutional government. Even though the United States government corporation, through its trustees or representatives, held stock in all of these agencies. So when you're looking at any of these agencies, you're looking at the U.S. They're different names of contractor entities, all of which are part of the tentacle operations of the Unum Sanctum U.S. United States Corporation Company. So when you speak of one, you're talking about a masked version of the same entity. If you want some law case reference to further do research to clear your mind on any doubts that you may have, look up United States versus Strang, 254 U.S. 491, Lewis versus U.S. 680, F. 2nd edition, 1239. 7. Social Security numbers are issued by the United Nations through the International Monetary Fund. The application for a Social Security number is the SS5 form. The Department of the Treasury, which is really the IMF, International Monetary Fund, issues the SS5 forms, not the Social Security Administration. So when the politicians tell you that you're dealing with the Social Security Administration, they've been lying to you, because they have stock in the International Monetary Fund, which really issues the Social Security number. And for those of you who have a little bit more information, make reference to those red numbers on that card known as the QSIP number. It deals with the routing venues of the geographical, occupational, corporate entity operations of the U.S. Corporation of the Circle Church and Chancery, run, as we've been telling you for decades, run from Fleet Street, England, etc., who are Roman Curia members and are essentially your legalese operatives, field operatives for the livestock chattel, or what you call the human stock, particularly of North America. That includes Canada, United States Corporation Company, and all other what you call protectorate territories, which would include Guam, the Philippines, Puerto Rico, etc. And this is why the people of Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines have been so abused by the corporate operatives of the U.S., because they've been draining their estates too. And as an interim preface of operations, those of you of the land, i.e., the true people of the land, Philippines, as a fact of matter, know that they are Moabite Canaanite tribes too, i.e., they're Moors. And you were called Philippines under the operations of Philip II, as they were conquering the Maghreb of the West, and therefore took over some of the islands and renamed the Moors on the islands after Roman Philip. You know you're not Philippines, and we know that you're not Philippines, just like we know that we're not so-called Black Indians. That's just a reminder for those of you on the islands who are suffering from the operations of the U.S., i.e., Unum Sanctum operatives. 8. There are no lawful judicial courts operating on the land under the jurisdiction of the United States Corporation Company doing business at North America. Lawful courts have not been in existence on this land since 1789. Article 3 judges do not enforce statutes and codes. Executive administrators enforce statutes and codes. And so you know if there are executive administrators pretending to be magistrates and judges, that they're actually a foreign operative, directors, etc., dealing with bankrupt entities and are not constitutional officers. If you need a little bit more reference for your enlightenment, look at FRC versus GE 281 US 464 Keller versus PE 261 US 428 1 statute 138 to 178. We could go into more details on many of these things, but we're expecting those of you who are really researchers to make reference and go back over this presentment tonight in order to enlighten yourself, because many of the conversations we've had with you over the years, the hybrid Pellegrinus have always made or funded trolls among our own that look like us and wear fezzes and turbans like us and put feathers in their turbans like us and put jewels on their turbans like us, but they have been really operative familiars with Rome and operating under the Roman 501c3 operations of control very often. We're aware of that, which is one of the things that kind of forced us to have to make some alterations with the channels here, which are, we're working these problems out. That has much of the origin. And so we're giving you certain keys so that many of you can enlighten yourselves and understand many of the conversations or statements that we've been making over the years that have been countered by many people that have been trolling, etc., in order to put you back to sleep. So we're giving you this information in bullet points so that you can go look up the receipts yourselves and enlighten yourselves and help yourselves and your families, knowing that we can't undo in a few lectures and presentments over these years to actually liberate the people, that you're going to have to take some responsibility for yourselves, etc., to start liberating yourselves and your families, and for having some reversion of your estates and to save some of yourselves from both starvation and economic warfare, poverty, that you can counter some of the contractual claims falsely made against you and the alleged debts put upon you that actually never belonged to you, but many of you had no knowledge of how to counter anything that was being presented to you under the Sister QV trust operations of the nom de guerres of the mails that you've been getting, that you've been noticing, but you need to have been paying attention to, that are in all capital letters that you thought were related to you. And all of those deal with the voucher operations of the Circle Church and Chancery operations, and is in fact not you, but actually the Sister QV trusts that are connected to the World Global Trust, controlled by the Bishopric of Rome, members of the Roman Curia, and i.e. headed by the Pope of Rome, and exercising judicial powers or civil judicial powers on the land, Canada, United States Corporation, occupational Central America, etc., not the land, the corporate entity, etc., that has been actually bleeding economically, socially, and politically the people of the land to the point that now the civil orders on the land are on the verge of collapse. Meaning that, in layman's terms, that they have sucked the blood out of the people, and the people are pretty much in a state of distress and close to economic collapse. We're sharing with you this knowledge so you can know the real problem that has been happening to you. Not that we haven't been telling you, but we know that there's always been countermeasures to make you think that we were making this information up, and we had some personal opinions that was getting the people in trouble, as opposed to we telling you what was really happening to you. And because the rest of the world is responding to the corruption and it's becoming apparent on the planet, and it can no longer be ignored, and particularly since the different nation states, and we don't have to name them, have been sending back the voucher systems to the Jesuits, i.e., in their operative corporation known as the U.S. corporation, that they've been disguising the collapse of the trade market by stealing your accounts. And this is again why we're telling you right now that as when we get off here, to start checking your accounts, because many of you going to be calling back, but you don't need to call us. You need to get active. You're going to find a lot of your fiat is missing, and it's going to be accelerating, not only as we speak, but across the land. But we gave many of you warnings to try to save yourselves. But, we're not saying that we told you so, but we told you so.
So, Great Sheik, how does that reflect on what's currently going on with the United States allegedly not having enough funds to continue paying its bills? The deadline was a few days ago or so, and they're saying that they don't have enough funds to keep operating unless they get some increase in.
So this, you're talking about what they're calling the debt ceiling,
yes, the
debt level, yeah, or the national debt. Remember, we've been telling the people for decades that the alleged national debt is a total fiction. Because remember, the operations of the voucher systems of the Circle Church and Chancery of the Federal Reserve is a disguise of their fraud or counterfeit of private commercial paper that was used actually to continue the process of stealing the gold, the silver, and the substantive values of the people of the land. And they've also done it to other nation states. And this has been particularly since the Second World War, which is why, as you know, a few years ago at the House, when we made note to the people when they were talking about those buildings collapsing in New York, that was really when Germany sent agents over to retrieve their gold, and they were told to take a walk. And 2 days later, some other people who peregrinos, who claimed to be three-letter people, said, oh, they had to drop this other building because it was in danger of collapsing. And then that building fell too, not just the other two, and people still didn't figure out what was happening. Those who knew what was happening knew that they were stealing the gold, not only of Germany, but other nation states. Now, over the period of time, they used that as a guise to exercise those wars in what they call in the Middle East. So if there's a Middle East, what is the East and what is the West East? But that's another thing. Know that the motive is not what people thought. However, in 2007, 2008, many of the nation states, after they saw what happened to Germany, which is technically and in fact the most powerful economy in Iberia, or that you call Europe, etc., when they sent their delegates to retrieve their gold and told to take a walk, after they saw what happened with that, we're talking about the nation states. We're not talking about what was in mainstream news here. Start calling back their gold. And it was only a matter of time, shortly after that, they hide that part under the public title of the 208 housing bubble. That's a cover up for the fact that what broke then has never been fixed. And what you see, that slow cancer that is manifest to what you see right now, that started in 2007 with the so-called Lehman Brothers strangulation and all of the housing mortgages. Remember years ago I said, Dr. G, I said, pay attention to Deutsche Bank.
Oh, yeah.
Remember I said that about 5 or 6 years ago?
More than that.
Street?
More than 5 years ago.
Well, guess what? All of those mortgages, and we know those are dead pledges, that all of these people that you've been calling senators and congressmen who have stock in, this is why this stuff was never corrected, etc. And they call all those so-called unsecured loans to so-called people who really didn't have the quote-unquote income type thing. Because remember, income does not apply to the living. Incomes only applies to corporate entities. So they've trained the people, the natural people, to think that their compensation that they've been trading their labor for all of these decades equaled income, and the people would write instrumentalities and sign their names to income tithing instruments of the Roman Curia, not knowing that none of that applied to them. And so they have misclassified the people. They had the people actually paying their labor, because remember, they're not paid with the voucher system. So the voucher system are the instruments that you know as the US dollar. The US dollar or dollar comes from Yakimthaler, which means gold coin. And so the people have never been paid. And then the voucher system is a bookkeeping system that they measure the energy output of the people of the land, the nationals, and of those people that come under the category of U.S. citizens, whereas they would drain both of them and transfer their private corporate debt to the people and then call it the national debt, which was a total fiction. Now, by the nations of the earth, i.e. the organic peoples, natural peoples, distinguished from the corporate entities operated by Peregrinus, particularly since World War II, etc., have been rebelling. This is what you see what's happening in Manchuria, that you call China now, and where you see that they've had these so-called cities of thousands and thousands of apartments, etc., where the people have been invested in, but they are empty, and it's collapsing now. So know that these operations, for the most part, are not the organic people of the land, but are actually operatives of the infiltrators, of the personators of government under Chinese Communist Party, which are really not organically Chinese people necessarily. They're actually foreign peregrinus, the same people of stock that have been occupying North America and Canada under hybrid European operations. So when the people say Chinese Communist Party, they're thinking organic Chinese people. That is not true. That's part of the unum sanctum operations of the United States under a tributary colony that's located in Canaan, referred to also as Palestine, but referred to under another name since 1947. And this has much to do with what they call the Opium Wars. And so when people think about the Chinese Communist Party, they keep thinking, according to the mainstream media, that they're talking about organic Chinese people. No, they're talking U.S., unum sanctum operations, and it's worldwide. And so what's going on in China right now and what's happening here at North America and at Canada all have a connection. So we're still talking about true facts about the United States corporation. People who don't understand this, their minds, for the most part, have been groomed to think, i.e., territorially central North American continent. No, you're talking worldwide corporate octopus under the Pope of Rome, known as the U.S. The U.S. is unum sanctum. Its corporation operations in the modern world is called the United States Corporation Company. The United States Corporation Company, which we've told you over and over again so that you can remember, and this is redundant, but we want to keep you clear. This was one of their filings in Florida, their corporation, i.e., and so their owners. Now, keep in mind, when you're looking at corporate, what is known as corporate succession. So this is a certificate of incorporation, as you can see. Now, and we've gone over this with you many times before, and many of you will look at this lightly because we don't, except in what you would call detailed school class, you would not necessarily know the details. So basically, the owners of the United States, this is as of March the 20th, 1927. Now, keep these timelines in mind, March the 30th. This is the time of the notary public. At the time of this filing at Florida, which we know the people of the land of flowers, the owners are Lewis H. Gunther, Samuel B. Howard, and Arthur W. Britton. That's at that time. And so many of you who do corporate research, you'll find who the successive owners are. Now, and keep in mind, by the natural people not being taught the truth about the politics, thought that the United States was the country or the organic land, but it's actually the private corporation of Peregrinus operating at North America under the Roman Curia. And this would read, Certificate of Incorporation, and this would be July at 13, 1925, State of Florida received Certificate of Incorporation of United States Corporation Company. The name of the corporation is United States Corporation Company. 2, the nature of the business and the objects and purposes proposed to be transacted, promoted, or carried on by the corporation are as follows: to prepare or cause to be prepared and procure, to be filed, recorded, registered, published, issued, or granted in accordance with law, articles or certificates of incorporation, applications for letters patent, charters, and other instruments relating to the incorporation and organization of corporations and joint stock companies. To prepare or cause to be prepared and procure, to be filed, recorded, registered, published, issued, or granted, certificates, reports, statements, applications for licenses, to do business or other instruments in relation to domestic and foreign corporations, companies, or associations to provide and maintain domiciliary and other offices and facilities for corporations, companies, and associations, and to act as agent in charge thereof, and upon whom process against or any official notices to any such corporation, company, or association may be served or given, and for any other lawful purpose. To act as the fiscal or transfer agent of or registrar of the stock or securities issued by any public or private corporation, and in such capacity to receive and to disperse money, to transfer, to register, to countersign, issue, and deliver certificates of stock, bonds, or other evidence of indebtedness, and to act as agent of any corporation, foreign or domestic, for any lawful purpose. And we can go on, but that is an introduction of what you're actually dealing with. And the people have been trained that that is the organic land. It is not. It is the private corporation of the Circle Church and Chancery, and the judicial operations or judgments made relative to any instrumentalities that deal with the marriage certificates, birth certificates, licenses, etc., are issued from this corporation under their subdivisional operations. And this is where you get the distinctions of things like instead of, say, Delaware, state of Delaware, which is part of this corporation, distinguished from Delaware State Republic, which would be the constitutional operations justified under constitutional and treaty law, operating on the land, not being the land, but having political, legitimate or de jure jurisdictional civil power, legitimate operations on the organic land, distinguished from the land, as distinguished from the private, for-profit, human trafficking, foreign, corporate entity known as the United States Corporation Company, again, which we remind you has been in operation on the land, etc., and has been accelerated since the 1861 with the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, but at the same time with the order of the Roman Curia members of the P2 Masons, etc. That's the Pontiff's order of Freemasons, etc. And that would include all of your different orders, etc. But that have been operating actually since 1789 under the operations of George Washington, etc. So these are other details which we have shared with you over the decades. But again, we're presenting some of this information, again, redundantly, to bring many of the people who don't have a scholarly background on the civil operations on the land at North America and get confused and have been tricked into thinking that they themselves are part of the quote unquote national debt, which is a totally fraudulent statement, because no national debt exists, because the United States is not a nation, it's a private corporation. And the people, it's difficult for the people to accept that they have been under psychic attack for generations. And so we understand that many people, it's uncomfortable for many people to accept that they've been living their lives under a false matrix for many generations. And this is why it's been necessary for the Peregrinus to teach the people that they've been just suffering under racism and prejudice, rather than the fact that they've been suffering under Peregrinus operations of Unum Sanctum via the United States Corporation Company with its multiple arms of Unum Sanctum Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed operations under what is commonly known as Christian crusades and colonial powers, etc. Now, this is a fact. And so we're presenting some of these facts so that you can get your head together, knowing that when you're because you are being attacked via, see what they do, they set up these corporate entities and they attack you with the corporate entities, and then you call the corporate entities person, and so you're not paying attention to the men and women who are actually attacking you. You're looking at the corporate entity, and so you don't. This is how they do what is called the masking, and so they've been quite successful with this. However, with the nations of the earth starting to reject their bottomry instruments, which are the foundation of their stock market, in spite of the people here at the north being still asleep, many of them are still asleep. It's difficult for the Belarus to continue to hide behind their corporate entity, and this is why they're doing the inflation and stealing people's accounts and making people's accounts disappear, because as the people wake up, they know that some of the people will start coming after them, particularly not so much the Aboriginal people, but actually what is commonly referred to politically as their so-called middle class, who do have some forms of Second Amendment weaponry to defend themselves from the Belarus who have betrayed them, because they didn't expect to be thrown under the bus. And so a lot of this confusion that you see going on politically, and with people not really comprehending, i.e., the British Accredited Registry of the Circle Church and Chancery operations, known as your lawyers and your attorneys, etc. This is again why they don't teach the people about the nobility clauses of the Constitution, because you would know immediately that these people are actually organized criminals. And we know that this is uncomfortable for a lot of people, but the deal of it is, we know that the responsibility on of what you would call law enforcement is actually the people themselves. And unless the people themselves start standing up for the reversion of their estates, that it is held that the people are abandoning their estates. And however, that's deceptive, because the people didn't know and don't know that they even had an estate, etc. So as this information is coming out from around the world and the common people are waking up, logically the P2 Masons, etc., and others who have interest in the enslavement of the people of the land and the theft of the estates of the nationals, etc., logically would do all kinds of measures to block the people being cognate. And this is again why so much effort has been put forth by the politicians to remove the people's rights to bear arms, etc., and to actually charge the people with criminality for exercising constitutional and treaty rights, etc., to both self-defense and to bear arms, because the principles that are of ancient allodial rights of the people is a right of self-defense and a right of protecting your family. And so it's difficult for the private corporate operatives of the British Accredited Registry to actually control and to continue to steal and pilfer from the people if the people are able to defend themselves. That's another subject matter within its own right. And this is where you see a lot of the hybrid Europeans operating at North America, who are referring to their Nasara and Gesara operations of trying to restore the Republic, which is which is a part of the matters going on. But my presentment for the night is mainly to the organic people of the land, and so that mentally you can remove yourself mentally and spiritually from the psychosis of assuming debt that didn't and never did belong to you, and doesn't and never did apply to you, etc. So I'll continue to read some of the facts. And so review much of this information so that you can begin to um, rescue yourself on many levels and help your family members, because you're going to need each other anyway. And keep in mind, much of what we want to present to you, all of which we can't present to you logically tonight. We've been giving you this information here and there, but we're trying to coagulate or condense some of the fundamental facts so that you can have a comprehension on why redundantly over the years, many of you know that I have knowledge of many other disciplines, metaphysical, astrological, otherwise, etymological, but you notice that over the years, my major focus has been civics, because I know realistically that a beggar people cannot fulfill the higher spirituality within themselves, and that people can do some research into their Asiatic African history and culture and their Sabak culture, etc. But it is difficult for them to put that knowledge to use while their families are starving, while their families are being broken up, while their children are hungry, etc., and while the Peregrinus are using de facto license instruments against the living under the category of the corporate debt of the nom de guerre in order to constrict the people's liberties and their capacity to have any what you would call living off their own land or their own resources. And this has much to do with why many of the operatives or familiars operating among us have been promoting the what you call empty argument of reparations, that to keep the people distracted, knowing that as long as the Peregrinus are in power, that would never happen, but is to project false hopes, because the people would be under the mysticism that these people who are operating on the land of the United States Corporation was, quote unquote, their government, which is not true, etc. So we will continue, because as you put this information and do research, when your mind changes, the conditions will change. So, 9, there have not been any lawful judges operating within the jurisdiction of the organic land under the jurisdiction of the United States Corporation Company doing business at North America since 1789. There have just been administrators. So whenever you're making any reference, what one of the things I would suggest for you spiritually in countering or dispelling part of the psychic attacks of the dark priesthood is stop saying statements like my senator, my congressman, my marriage license, my birth certificate. Anything that is possessive in structured statement relative to the bottomry instruments creates the obligation of the debt that carries with these bottomry instruments. Refer to them as the U.S. human trafficking birth certificate, the U.S. human trafficking marriage certificate, the U.S. Social Security number attached to the Sister QV trust with the nom de guerre homonym, and then you sound the name that is not your attributes. And I know it's wordy, but that's how you begin the energy of breaking the spell, because when you cast this into the ethers, it will coagulate and you will reconnect to the earth Midgard, and the spell will gradually begin to crack. Even though it's cracking now, this is for those of you who are less knowledgeable of the truth of spell casting with words. because the word is God and the word was with God, and so if you change your language, you can help yourself. And this is for people who are less sophisticated metaphysically relative to linguistics and grammatication, to help you to counter the operations of the administrators of the corporation who do not have your best interest at heart. That's a fact. But we're giving you some of these facts because you have to recognize that they do not have your best interest at heart. Not because I or anyone else says so. We're giving you the evidence. We've given it to you for decades. However, this is just some of the condensed. It is much more than this. But this is just showing you some of the tentacles that you have been trained with misinformation to think were independent, separate corporate entities that had no direct connection to these people who you thought were your senators, congressmen, mayors, and council people and representatives, when all of them are connected in one of the tentacles of the same octopus known as the U.S., Unum Sanctum United States Corporation Company. Now, 10, according to the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, which are being affected now, you must have a Social Security number. That's a House Report 103-826. This is why they would not let you buy or sell without the mark or the number of the IMF's Social Security number, which would attach you without your permission to the QSIP number that you didn't know routed you under the Circle Church and Chancery, Fleet Street, England, through the different 12 regencies that they split the land up in, through the routing numbers of the Federal Reserve Board, etc., that was selling you on the stock market through marriage certificates and birth certificates, just to name a few, and all licenses, etc. And of course, the priesthood in your local field offices would not tell you this, because they wouldn't want you to know that they're part of this corruption. However, I'll take a few minutes and go over the 501c3 that we mentioned to you many times, that many of you did not comprehend. The Lyndon B. Johnson operation after they killed Kennedy in that era time, and they did their 501c3 to control their civil rights Negro marching familiar guys. And this is why a lot of times people who knew what I was really talking about would attack me when in the late 80s and the early 90s, when I promoted the reinforcement of the activation of Article 3 constitutional venue courts of the diversity jurisdiction of the nationals of the land, who are the true heirs, with the enforcement of the consular venue that Eisenhower that shut down in 54 to 56, etc. And this is why you see, when you look at international law, with them reflying the flag on the territory of the subdivisional jurisdiction of Kingdom of Morocco in Mexum East, or what you call Kemet or Africa, when they were to relinquish jurisdiction at the empire, which would be North America. And so it was necessary for them to promote under their familiars the quote unquote civil rights movement, in order to disguise again the corporate operations on the land, and to restore unum sanctum claim of the estate of the true nationals of the land, i.e. the Aboriginal people, referred to as Negroes, Blacks, and Indians, etc., which was schism operations, and which has continued. But now that they've added the so-called middle class, quote unquote, whites, etc., now there's somewhat of a complaint unity happening among the people at large. And because the nations of the earth are starting to not accept those bottomry instruments anymore, it has created problems. And of course, they're not going to tell you, but as we told you, 7, 8 years ago, that there was going to be a feedback loop. It already happened. And so the stock market, truthfully, has already crashed. They're just hiding it. And so this, again, why they're stealing the people's accounts right now as we're speaking to try to save themselves. So you need to understand what's happening right now based on these facts so that you're not diverted to other spurious and false arguments for the purpose of you not really dealing with what's happening. Because as long as you don't deal with what's really happening to you, there's two things that take place. They're claiming that under wardship tenures, you're continuing to abandon your estate. And by tacit acquiescence, all the instruments that you've been signing, all which are fungible, negotiable instruments, they can sell around the world in the stock market under the guise of being representatives of the nation of people, which they're not. I mean, they continue to fraud and you continue to lose. And because they know it's a dangerous game at this time, it's almost like they're kind of forced to sacrifice the people, and we're talking about really sacrifice the people, rather than pay the price for what is known as misprision. Write this down: misprision of treason and treason. Misprision of treason and treason. I would suggest, after, we won't get into that, go look up what the reward for treason is, and you'll understand why they're doing all kind of certain attacks on the people, whether they're doing it like this or other means, etc., to get you off the planet physically. And again, we came back on this channel in order to talk to you, knowing that some things we cannot say. But you also know that. But the fact that you are not liberated to speak honestly is further proof to you that they are not your government and that they are indeed your enemies. And for those of you who have insisted that they were your government, they themselves, as we've told you for decades, are going to prove to you who they really are. And they're doing it as we speak. Now,
one of the things, if I may interject, I've noticed is that they are raising interest rates. If you have credit card debt, you need to do the best you can to, if you can, eliminate that. Don't add anything else to it, because they are raising rates to the point where now they're taking 29, 30, and 4, 34.
And that's going to be on the low side.
To take,
That's going to be on the low side. Now that's part of the inflation. Now the inflation is, remember, the inflation is the code word for corrupt government robbing the people under the Roman tithe tax system. And for those of you who would be a little confused about what I just stated right there, go look up in Thomas Jefferson's papers and look in the areas where he talks about the power to tax and its weaponization against the people. And that will give you a comprehension of what you're dealing with right now and what the so-called rating is relative to the interest rate, etc. That's what's going on right now. And this is why we've told you all in these last few years not to buy anything big. Nothing. Don't buy what you don't need. Don't buy no new cars. Don't buy no new house, because you're going to be underwater. Anybody, this is, put it this way. Let me try to give you something that you can relate to, because most of the things that I've told you decades ago. So let me bring you up to snuff, something that you can experience, so you can understand that I have no intentions of injuring you, that I don't say these things to hurt you, that I do the best I can to help. to my limit and with my humble, limited weakness, I try to help. Say if you bought a car last year for $100,000, as an example. Like say you bought a new Tesla, as an example, and you spent 120 for it. In about a month from now, and maybe even now as I speak, you will be able to get that same car for maybe 25% less. That has more, meaning that the people who bought the car last year will owe more on that car than someone who buys the car brand new this year. Say you bought a house in Las Vegas last year, say for 700,000, 1 million, 1.5. California, 2 million, 3 million. Before this year out, that same house will go for less than half, if not a third less, and sinking, which means for the same house, same car, the person who bought it last year will be in debt farther and deeper than the person who so-called vouchers that car today, presently. So the same car, even that costs more, will be cheaper now, and that they'll call it housing collapse. They'll hide it under housing collapse. They will. That means all of as a reflection. Now, being in knowing construction and knowing the reflections of, say, as an example, pickup sales. As in, just give you examples. These are things that you can currently look at, so you can understand some of the things I've talked about years ago that many people dismissed. When they're building houses or complexes, they count on sales of mainly pickups, though they have box what you call box trucks, etc. But mostly pickups. Is why pickups are so popular, and SUVs. They will increase in sales because, including furniture, because most of the common people would use these to transport their big buys, etc. So I suggest you start looking at the bottom line of the charts of, say, Ford Motor Company, General Motors, and look at their truck sales. Then look at Stellantis, which would include the Chrysler products, etc., with the Ram trucks, and start measuring their sales. You'll probably see Ford, which has always been number one, drop heavily. You'll see trucks parked in the desert because they're not going to be selling them. And you're going to see GM with the GMC and the Chevy trucks, their sales drop exponentially. You're going to see Stellantis reduce the manufacturer's price of their Ram trucks in order to get rid of inventory, which will force Ford and GM to drop their prices, which will cause people to stop trading in their old cars, which will cause all of your major used car trade companies like Carvana and others to have increased stock, not moving anything, which will cause them to have to drop their prices in order to get rid of stock, or they're going to go bankrupt. And therefore, anyone who bought any of these vehicles last year and the houses are going to be underwater, which is why we told you don't buy anything big. Now we're just dealing with the math. We're dealing with math of corporate business. That's layman's terms what I just spoke of. Now, for those of you who doubt what I've been telling you for years, start doing some research and see what I just told you is not true. And I guarantee you what I just stated is absolutely true, and you haven't seen the last of it. And that's for those who haven't believed what I've been telling you. So that means their stock is going to drop. So that means also jobs are going to be lost. And so the banks, to save themselves, they're going to be stealing their unsecured creditors' double bookkeeping accounts that these people thought was theirs. And you're going to start seeing so-called glitches in your credit cards. I didn't buy this for $4,400. Where did this come from? And then you're going to be going to them and calling them, and they're going to be telling you, they're going to be holding you up and telling you, well, they don't know, they're looking into it. And then they're going to have scammers calling you and say, someone's been trying to go into your account, and so we're going to have to change your cards and stuff like that. Meanwhile, they've robbed you. And if you will start doing the numbers, you're going to see that they've stolen from you. But they're going to tell you that somebody else stole from you. Now, this is going to go on for a little while. It ain't going to be too long because they've got to move a lot of vouchers to save their bank system because they know it will be a domino effect. So all of this is happening right now. It's going to accelerate. So don't be calling us because we've already told you this for months and months and for years. So remember, we're not here to be your savers. We're here to try to help you save yourselves and your families. But we know that many of you believe in Rome, and we're not going to argue about that. We're not going to judge you. But Rome is going to prove to you, the vampires who they are, and that these politicians that you thought were your government are vampires, which we've been telling you, but we're not going to be telling you we told you so. We're giving this information so that you can kind of stay. You're not going to be able to totally stabilize your families, but do the best that you can to save your families. Don't waste your energy on diversionary things that the politicians tell you. And I'll tell you how you're going to be able to tell when the politicians are lying to you. This is the foolproof manner or method by which you can tell when the politicians and the priesthood are lying to you, quote unquote, as soon as they open their mouths. This is why we're giving you this information. You can do with it what you please to do. We're not trying to be your leader, guys. Not what this is about. We're just trying to inform you so that you can start taking responsibility, which we've been telling you for decades, to take control of your lost estate. And this is for people who want this information. We're not trying to convert anybody's mind or anything like that. However, Rome is going to prove to you what Rome has always been. They've been murderers from the beginning. They abide not in the truth. And when they speak of a lie, they speak of their own. John 8:44, which we've been telling you. 11. New York City is defined in federal regulations as, quote unquote, the United Nations. Now, you thought United Nations was just some organization, didn't you? New York City is the United Nations. It's a private corporate entity of the Circle Church and Chancery and the Vatican. And of course, as they've taken over the Moroccan Empire, this is why they refer to New York as the Empire State. And when you do a little bit of research on George Washington, you'll see that he had a special meeting on Day Street at New York. And it isn't D-A-Y. It's D-E-Y. I'll leave that for you to have something to ponder on. So, New York City is defined in federal regulations as the United Nations. And at that time, when we prepared a lot of this text, Rudolph Giuliani stated on C-SPAN that New York City is the capital of the world. Now, why did he make that? is because it's the Council on Foreign Relations, Chapter 111, Subpart B, 44-103, Sub B 22, parenthesis. That's for those of you who know jurisprudence, so you can do your research and you can counter the trolls that I guarantee you are there. So you can say, Taji guy said that, and Taji guy said that. Well, I'm giving you reference, and these are your receipts. 12, Social Security is not insurance, nor is it a contract. There is no trust fund supporting it. For y'all who want to do a little bit of research, Helvering versus Davis, 301 U.S. 619. Stewart Company versus Davis, 301 U.S. 548. And this is why we told you again that all of your so-called funds that you've been tricked by the corporate entities to put in your 401ks and stuff. This is why over the decades you used to hear me make fun, but it's not fun of the people. We're trying to enlighten the people that your 401ks will be called 409ks. And you were wondering why the so-called congressmen and senators, they go into these curia offices, ordinary people, and within a year, they're all wealthy millionaires and multimillionaires because they themselves are part of the Roman curia and they've been robbing you, and they are members of the Roman curia and operatives, successor, corporate successor operatives of the United States Corporation Company, etc., which I've been telling you. And so you don't have to believe me. I'll give you receipts. But I'm giving you references so that you can do the research for yourself. You can believe what you want to believe, but this is not for believers. These are facts. I also want to give a shout out to my extended family, Atiti. Hope the family is listening and the scholars on the east side are listening of Africa, and all of the tribes here of the North Gate who know their pedigree and bloodline and know who they are and are reclaiming their lost estate or making efforts to do so. And also a shout out to and support for many of our brothers and sisters in both acting industry and the music industry and the entertainment industry who have been attacked by the Peregrinados, who, upon beginning to discover their pedigree and the truth of who they are, have been under attack. But I want you to note this. You notice how some of the Aboriginal people here who began to start doing a little research and finding out some of the real history of the pedigree of the people here were under attack, and overnight their finances dropped billions or dropped millions because it's all digital, because they are vouchers, it's not money. Keep this in mind. House Joint Resolution 192, Congress, Board of Directors for the United States Corporation Company, quote unquote, credit is not money. Quote unquote, Federal Reserve notes are not money. You've been trained to think those were money. They're not, they weren't, and all the politicians knew it. However, the lie is catching up with them. This is another reason why they're doing a lot of things to you, shutting your families down, shutting your businesses down so that you don't come after them. And so they're stealing your accounts now so that you don't have you'll be so preoccupied trying to save your families, etc., trying to get food or get food. A lot of important food or basic stock foods that you're used to, that you've been comfortable with, will be missing from Walmart and other stores, and what's left is going to be jacked up almost 100% to keep you busy, so that you're not paying attention to the United States corporation, company, person, successor, corporate successor beneficiaries that are not your government. So I'm telling you what's happening to you. For those of you who just don't believe this stuff we've been telling you for years. Now, under their operations, keep this in mind, the Social Security check 13 comes directly from the International Monetary Fund, which is an agency of the United Nations. And the United States Department of Treasury is at the top left corner. Keep in mind, so look at these instruments, which again is part of the UN, as pointed out earlier to you. This is so that you need not continue to operate your life not knowing these bottomry instruments, where their origin is and who these beings really are, who have been controlling your lives and stealing from you at the same time, and faking as your government and causing injury to you and your families. And as a secondary or another footnote, I want to present to you, with their eugenics programs that have been instituted since the 40s, you'll be hearing a part of the eugenics in the Margaret Sanger operations, or Rex 84 military operations. You'll be hearing this phrase, passport brothers. And the passport brothers is part of the eugenics operations because they have successfully torn our families apart. And so they're making more bridges between men and women so that we don't produce children, because you'll be busy fighting each other, etc., and condemning each other and making each other miserable and blaming each other, not knowing that you're under psychic attack. So anything, when you hear this phrase, passport brothers, understanding that's a military operation, and the people think it actually is a problem between the men and women in the Western Hemisphere. It was contrived. And it's been going on for decades. And so when you see the problems that are coming around that whole subject matter, understand that origin is from the eugenics program. And I know, and it's a sensitive subject matter, and a lot of men and women in their personal relationships will be at each other's throats. But I suggest that you be kind to each other and be more considerate and not fall for the game, because most of you don't know it's part of the eugenics program started in the 40s. The same thing they did with the so-called right to your body programming. And I know it's difficult because most people don't want to talk about it. So I'm throwing that out at you because it's another part of the attack made against you under the United States Corporation Company. And most of you experiencing this and these problems will be looking at each other, men and women fighting each other, not knowing that it's a military operation. And know that passports is for shipping and bottomry instruments, not for the living, but for corporate dead. Now that's a fact. So I'm just throwing that at you as a footnote for you to start using your spiritual goodness to start loving each other and start trying to heal, because you're being attacked on many levels. And that's another one I just want to throw out that at you, so that, because I know many of you are going to be affected by that. That's United States Corporation operations, Rex 84. 16. King of England financially backed both sides of the American Revolutionary War. That's the Treaty of Versailles that we talked about over the decades and shared with you. So when you look at the Treaty of Versailles, July 16, 1782, and the Treaty of Peace, 8, Statute of 80. This is referenced so that that's to counter the trolls, because we already know they're going to be there. So this is another reason why we're just giving bullet points of information so that you can do research, because we know if we go deeper into details on a lot of this stuff, that all of a sudden we'll start getting transmission problems. Which is, again, while we're in the process of doing another site that Dr. G talked about. But we're trying to get some information out there so that you can be more independent thinkers for yourselves. And at the same time, you can have a clear comprehension, in spite of the criticisms and the countermeasures, why we've been focused on civics for all these decades with you, because we already knew the tools that the priesthood have been using against you, and that other subjects or subcategory social engineering subjects were brought up to you in order to divert your energy so that you would not coalesce into organized association, which would be a threat against the hierarchy, who like to call themselves the elite, i.e., who are really Roman Curia members and familiars. And that's a fact. So that you can look at the chess pieces. Those who you don't know the fifth dimensional chess that has been going on, you can look at it. I'm trying to make what you'll call more down to earth political reflections of the chess pieces that are operating and have been all the time on your fourth and fifth dimensionals by the priesthood against you. Now, the Pope of Rome can abolish any law in the United States. Elements of Ecclesiastical Law, Volume 1, 53, 54. And this is so you can understand why over the years, when you see the Pope of Rome will come anywhere in the territory of Canaan land, Canada, etc., under United States jurisdiction, North America, that the Pope would be funded, protected by whatever corporate entity that was operating judicial, civil authority on the land, because the corporation and their subdivisions all belong to the Pope. So that you can understand that, having nothing to do with your concept of what you thought religions were relative to the different sects, etc. All of them are subordinate to the Pope of Rome under the Roman Curia operations. So we're talking about you getting real about the politics that are here. And this is why a lot of people, some people in different positions of authority or pseudo authority in different organizations over the years would, whenever I would over the years share some of this information, would all of a sudden go out of their way to begin to attack me, because the information also exposes them. Not intentionally, it's nothing personal, it's just a default situation. And so they would take it personal because it would expose them. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of fact about from the Skull and Bones operations of Lyndon Baines Johnson. That's your 501c3. So you understand that has nothing to do with spirituality. That has to do with Roman tithing operations under the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed operations of the U.S. Corporation Company. And this is incorporation, Sole, the solution, links, etc., 501c3, facts. So when we're talking to 501c3 facts, we're talking United States corporation facts. Most churches in America have organized as 501c3 tax-exempt religious organization. This is a fairly recent trend that has only been going on for about 50 years. So think around the time when they got rid of Kennedy. So churches were only added to Section 501c3 of the Tax Code of 1954. Keep in mind, remember I told you about 1954 with Dwight D. Eisenhower and the relinquishing of jurisdiction at Morocco, which is documented congressional records. And this is when they started promoting the so-called civil rights movement. All this correlates. Timeline. Now we can thank Senator, at that time, Senator Lyndon B. Johnson for that. Johnson was no ally to the church. Keep this in mind. As part of his political agenda, Johnson had it in mind to silence the church and to eliminate the significant influence the church had always had on shaping, quote unquote, public policy. If you pay attention to the operations of the so-called civil rights movement, you'll see the so-called civil rights leaders always refer to the quote unquote pseudo black church culture of community support coming from the church, etc. Keep that in mind. And although Lyndon Baines Johnson preferred this as a favor to the churches, the favor also came with the strings attached and more like shackles. And one need not look far to see the devastating effects of the 501c3 acceptance has had on the church and the consequent restrictions placed upon any 501c3 church. 501c3 churches are prohibited from addressing in any tangible way the vital issues of the day. This is why you have all your civil rights leaders always talking about the civil rights movement, Rosa Parks, buses, marching all over the place, etc., to keep the people from recognizing that this had nothing to do with Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, etc. This has to do with them submitting to the members of the Roman Curia of the United States Corporation Company in their continued operation under the Constantine order, etc., under the guise of Christianity as the head for controlling the people and making sure no conversations really dealt with the true liberties and rights or divine sovereign rights of the people, and to divert them into thinking that the civil rights operations dealt with constitutional rights, liberties, principles, when it actually dealt with the nom de guerre operations of the 14th Amendment, which is known as the courts, the dead, or the corporate person under the circle, church, and chancery operations, etc. That is your bar association, and the manumission clauses dealing with the transfers of all people held to servitude transferred from the European hybrid colonial families to the Congress for the United States Corporation Company, having nothing to do with the liberation of anyone, had to do with estate transfers from the colonial European families operating on the land into the jurisdiction of the Congress and Senate for the United States Corporation Company. And so it was necessary to hide the fact of human trafficking under quote unquote civil rights clause. That's what the 501c3 is. That's why you see all of these so-called civil rights guys got the real people of the land marching around on their own land, thinking that they came from someplace else, thinking that the land was India, thinking that, and we Indians and stuff like that, and Indian tribes, etc., when we're the real Al-Moroccans or people of the land, etc. That's a fact. United States Corporation Company is in place to exercise the unum sanctum powers of the Popes of Rome. And so for the 501c3 church to openly speak out or to organize in opposition to anything that the U.S. government declares, quote unquote, legal, even if it is immoral, which would include abortion, homosexuality, etc., that the church will jeopardize its tax exempt status. There's more, but that's just entry. And so these are facts about the United States, and these people who really don't understand the politics have no idea what they're dealing with. So we're giving you some facts to clear your head of your economic and social problems that you're experiencing, so they don't have you fighting each other or your neighbors. Yes, Dr. D.
Well, as we get to wrap up the end of this session, I just want, for those who weren't in when I on the live when I talked about what we're doing and why we're on.
Yes, remind them, please.
Yes, that we wanted to come to you on Facebook and YouTube today so that you will know that we have not abandoned those of you who could not find us 2 weeks ago. We did have what we called House of Reawakening Minds. We call it Unfiltered, and that is a private platform. What I will be doing is, first of all, I let you all know that we have a website in the process of being developed, and within a couple of weeks, so hopefully that'll be online so that you'll be able to go to that website and click on links to actually get into the unfiltered side of what we're doing. In the meantime, what I will do is what I did the last time. I created a YouTube post notification. In that YouTube notification, you will find a link to register for the next session. So we will make sure that that link is up at least 3 days prior to that next Friday session. Please, please, please follow in the description. You will find the link in the description. It'll just be a video saying that we're not going to be on YouTube, but here is the link. Please click on the link and you'll find it in the description, and you'll be registered for the next Unfiltered. And that's only until the website is up and running, because we want to make sure that we can do what we said we were going to do when we ask you to support us on this other platform. We do appreciate each and every one of you who supported us to be able to get that, and we don't want it to go to waste. It was a very good session, although there were less than half of who's on here now, Grand Sheik. I think we had about 400 and some that were on that particular one. But in the future, when you get the notification of a YouTube of an upcoming Unfiltered, you'll see it on YouTube. It'll just be the link so that you can register for it until our website is up and running, and then you'll be able to go directly to the website. Also wanted to remind, since I got still quite a few of you on here, February 14th is coming up. That is our National Grand Sheik's will be his 77th solar return. So, you know, I'm having to say this in front of him because I won't catch 1,200, 1,300 of you on when it's just me. So we want you, those of you who, you know, want to show, you know, your love and appreciation to our Grand Sheik for his 77th solar return coming up, I believe on the 11th of February. We're going to try to do an online celebration. But if you want to show your love in other ways, please, you know, you can reach out to me, ask me how, and we certainly do want to give you an opportunity to do so. So remember that the 14th is actually the solar return of Grand Sheik, but that's like sort of like a Tuesday, I believe. So on the 11th of February will probably be one of our unfiltered parties, so we can play music and so forth. We'll want you to be able to click on the link for that. So that's just some upcoming notifications. And also we are still also looking to have a New Year's celebration in March 17th, 18th, and 19th The 17th will be my personal solar return. And then the 18th and 19th, we're going to do a 3-day celebration. We're trying to get that together so that those of you who want to come and be a part of, because it's preceding the spring equinox. Am I correct?
All right.
The vernal equinox.
Vernal
equinox, or our real new year. So that's March 17th, 18th, and 19th. Stay tuned for more information on that.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's also referred to as the stars in the east, or Eastern Star, or Ishtar, Astarte. Fact. There's another fact. And so you keep me in check for time.
Well, we got
America, and this is very important. 18. America is not, or America is the name of the continent of the Western Hemisphere, which is split by what is known as the Panama Canal, but is in fact basically one continent, though we commonly refer to as two continents, really one. America is the name of the continent, the world of the world's recognized continents. The United States Corporation doing business at North America is a British colony. The United States is a corporation. The United States is not a landmass. And this entity existed before the Revolutionary War. And the British troops did not leave North America until 1796. Republica versus Swears, 1 Dallas 43, Treaty of Commerce, 8 Statute 116, Treaty of Peace, 8 Statute 80, IRS Publication, 6209, Articles of Association, October 20th, 1774, reference. So whenever you make mentioning the U.S., understand that you're saying unum sanctum through its operative corporate entity known as the United States Corporation, British colony, and the transfer of the estates of the people through the military dictator known as George Washington, transferring the estates of the people here into the states. So keep that in mind, that Britain is owned by the Vatican, Pope of Rome, Treaty of 1213. The 1040 form, tax form imposed upon the people, is for tribute which is paid to Britain. That's IRS Publication 6209. There's more facts, but we've given you many of them. And for many of you who have been dedicated supporters of the House of Reawakening Minds, if any of you want some of these notations, just for the cost of production itself, we'll see that it's sent to you so that you can be grounded, because I didn't give you all of it, but I gave you enough so that you can have receipts for yourselves. And knowing that you're under attack now, this will help many of you as these tentacles of the octopus of the Vatican are put upon you currently, and will affect you so that your energy is not wasted in emotional race and prejudice arguments, that you'll go directly to the law and the truth in order to save whatever little you have left, that they don't steal from you, so that your families can maybe survive some of this transitional period. Because as we talked the last time, Dr. G, the people are looking for comfort, and I said I'm not going to lie to them. It's going to be uncomfortable for a while. However, their intention is to sacrifice a lot of people, and that's the truth. That's just simply the truth. And so there's no need of lying about it or trying to comfort the people when we know they're getting ready to catch super hell.
And the other thing that we were saying today, and I was saying to you today, was the fact that you talk about the war of the gods.
Mm-hmm.
We a lot of us don't realize that we are the gods. We, the gods, are at war with these other beings, if you will. So there really is a war of the gods.
And they're trying to kill the Christ in you so that you don't wake up. Because as you wake up, that power or that light, etc., that energy, that monad brings you into your God state. And the deal of it is, this is why it has been vital from a political strategy, from a what you call metaphysical chess level, for the priesthood to promote schismata in the name of religion, and to promote fiat in the name of money, and to promote de facto government in the name of constitutional government. And this is also known as your 3 M's. Mercenary, military. First, they would send their mercenaries, or what do you call these?
They said missionaries.
Missionaries, the mission, the 3 M's. They would send their missionaries and tell you about their versions of Christ, when the real deal is they're the murderers of the Christ. Their job is to kill the light, or to kill the Christ in you.
I call it the sword tip religion.
Yes. Then, as the people, some accept, some don't, then they send their mercenaries, which is all your commercial mercenaries. This is why people need to know that the Fraternal Order of Police is a private religious group. They don't know that. Private religious group. And their contracts is with the United States Corporation Company. This is why, with people who really don't understand why they would like strategically take women and men of the aboriginals of the land and murder them on the street to keep the people intimidated. And the people thought they were constitutional law officers. They're not. They're commercial mercenaries. Refer to them for who they really are. Uncomfortable truth, but it is the truth. So as you become conscious of what's really happening here on our land, you'll understand the accelerated hostile activities of people who have been claiming to be your government, who they never were, the discomfort that you're feeling, the theft of those accounts that you thought were yours, which made you actually private unsecured creditors when you thought you had accounts. That's why we told you for years, take the fiat out the banks. Start taking responsibility, because they're going to steal it. And I want to make this other note to you as we refer to you. All the teachers in Canada jurisdiction, all of their retirement funds has been stolen. All of it, not some of it, all of it. So there's another reason why they've been clamping down and doing a lot of things to the people in the Canada jurisdiction. I just want you to know that. And this is remember, you're still dealing with U.S. operations. Anyway.
Well, I want to say this as before we go, because you and I talked about this, and maybe some of you out here who are having similar
problems,
situations. I'm not gonna call it problems so much. Yeah, I shared with Grand Sheik how lately, and I know I've been ill, for about a week or so, but even a little bit beyond that, I've been dealing with feeling as if I said in the twilight zone. Remember I said that? Mm-hmm. That it's almost like the life is being sucked out of the atmosphere. Like you're like walking through, looking out your window or going outside, and you're like, where the hell am I? Mm-hmm. It's nothing is familiar. It feels like the air and everything else has been changed. And you said that was a part of the attack or psychic attack, yes. But also the awareness that something is going on, that everybody's not aware that things are changing at an atmospheric level like that. So, building oneself up.
The spiritually warfare, and the galactic warfare energies are manifesting from the 6th, 5th, at least from the 6th. Yeah, from the 6th, 5th, high 4th dimension into 3rd dimensional energy. And so this is again, you got two things that's happening right now. That the people of the land are reconnecting with the land. The avatars who are connecting back with the land are calling upon the energies, as our forefathers did, of the land, of the air, and of the water. And as Drew Ali said earlier, decades ago, for us to reconnect, lest the earthquakes, the floods, the storms would increase. They are. But keep in mind, although it's injurious, Earth herself, Midgard herself, is purging. So you need to recognize what's going on and get yourself both mentally and spiritually prepared, because we have to go through this cleansing. The people refuse to reject Rome. They refuse to reject Rome. Nature herself is taking it out of your hands. So it is wise that you get back in harmony with nature, because to keep it in layman's terms, she's not playing.
Absolutely.
And so wherever your energy is where your protection or lack thereof also is. Now, that's just a fact. I'm not going to try to argue with you about it or try to prove anything to you. Open your eyes and experience it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Listen, thank you all for tuning in tonight. We are going to close the session down. As I said, look for an announcement on YouTube with a link in the description that will have the actual link for the next Unfiltered. Please, it's over 1,200 of you here, so just look for that. Just like you see this, just you'll be able to register. Question was, would you have to register again if you registered for that first one? Unfortunately, each one has its own link, so the question would be yes. So again, we love you. Thank you so much. Until we meet again, and don't forget, Grand Sheik is our national Grand Sheik, and his solar return is coming up on the 14th of February. On the 11th, we are going to celebrate. We want you to be there. We're even going to give some of you an opportunity to come on and be a part of the panel and partying with us like we did. Remember that a couple of years ago, Grand Sheik. So look out for that. Again, thank you so much. He's getting ready to go, y'all. He's not even waiting for me to shut down. he's all right. Okay, y'all. We get ready to go. All righty.
The deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine.